Art and Fear is a book by David Bales and one other fellow, Ted Knowles, I think. I can't remember. But I suggest that's one book you must definitely get. And the other is Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott, Annelemott. And it's all about the creative process. There are no pictures in there to entertain you like they are in photography books, but you're going to learn a lot of things. One of the things that David Bales and Ted Orland, Orland, said in Art and Fear, art making involves skills that can be learned. In large measure, an artist consists of learning to accept yourself, which makes your work personal, and in following your own voice, which makes your work distinctive. Even talent is rarely distinguishable over the long run from perseverance and a lot of hard work. And that pretty much says it all for me. You got to work hard. Okay, enough talking. I want you to look at pictures. This was taken in a graveyard in Moscow called Novodevichy. And translated means New Maiden Convent. It's where the Tsar sent his wife when he wanted to fool around. He sent her to this convent. And in the old days, I mean, before Perestroika and all those changes that happened in Russia, the artist had no place to exhibit his work. There were no galleries. You couldn't send it to another country. It all went into a big, huge warehouse in Moscow, and you got a stipend from the government to keep you alive so you could buy materials and food, etc. And in this particular case, this place to me is a photo museum, a sculpture garden. Because when a dignitary died, they'd hire an artist, and the artist would do a rendering of that individual. A dancer might be somebody dancing, or just a pair of ballet shoes. An astronaut, there's one sculpture of an astronaut in full clothing, astronaut clothing. This, apparently a musician had passed away, and there are leaves on it, and it's dirty, and all that other stuff. But when I make a 16 by 20 and I mat and frame it and put it over our piano, it looks wonderful. A brief backstory for this is this young boy's father had passed away. And this was a little reception after the church service. And just happened to get this very unusual photo of the child. Now, Debbie and I have discussed that everything I do is street photography. I don't care where it is. If at a wedding, a bar mitzvah. I don't know if street photography really applies. It's just photography. I'm always looking for a moment, a special moment that's going to be interesting. This is at a wedding, a friend of mine in Vermont. And I met a kid at a camera store in New Jersey, and he was renting a whole bunch of camera equipment. And I was curious. I said, "What are you doing with all that stuff?" He says, "Well, I'm shooting a wedding." I said, "And you got an 80 to 200 zoom?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "What's that for?" I said, "I can understand if, you can't get near the service, and you're pretty well back and you want to reach, with the zoom, then okay. Fair enough. If you're up in the balcony of a church and you want to look down, something like that, that's fine. But from there on, the wedding exists to me with a 28, a 24, or a 21 millimeter lens, and get close. Not easy, because there are certain personality types that just don't do it. I couldn't get my wife to do it because she's too shy. And if you're too shy, you got to work out your own way. And I've told this story previously about Dorothea Lange, a great Depression era photographer. Someone asked her how she gets so close without being noticed. She says, I put on my cloak of invisibility. Now, Dorothea Lange was from Hoboken, New Jersey. That's where I'm from that area. And I was in a curio shop. I'd gone to the Y, I was playing basketball, and went into a curio shop, and I noticed in the back there was a cloak hanging on a hook with no particular significance. So I went over and I took it off, put it on, and I look on the inside, it said Property D. Lange. I said, oh, this is Dorothea Lange's cloak of invisibility. Is that a bargain? You know, I walked out, I never paid for it. Nobody saw me. I had on the cloak of invisibility. That's really, that whole story is a metaphor for find your own way of getting close and becoming invisible. I don't know how you do that. I do it my way, and my friend Paul here will tell you what I do, but for the most part, I try and become invisible and part of the whole situation. This way nobody pays attention to me, and I'm no more than 2 feet from this fella. I have no idea who these 3 people are. I was lucky at this because Billie Jean King asked that I be on center court when the stadium was named after her. And it was a bit embarrassing because all the, really good photographers, AP, New York Times, UPI, all those guys were on the side. They weren't allowed in the center court, but I was. And, you know, as a result, I got this marvelous moment of John McEnroe smiling. Sorry, John. No, John's a good guy. But you can see the mischievousness in Jimmy's eyes because he's obviously said something that cracked them both up. But the reason I show you this is because I have a thing about collecting superstars. You know, a lot of people go to these shops and they buy memorabilia. This is my memorabilia. I mean, when I get 3 giants, and I use that term advisedly, 3 giants from tennis in one picture, I'm happy with that. This is Jersey City, and 1980. And this was their swimming hall. I'll never forget, I learned something very interesting that day. He asked one of the kids, I said, why are there no black children here? And these were all Puerto Ricans. And I said, no, the black kids, they swim in a municipal pool. This is our pool. So they segregated themselves. You know, black guys went to the municipal pool, and these guys owned this area. But the thing that attracted me mostly to this, besides the kids, which I loved, and the swimming, but the backdrop was New York City. And you'll see it in some other pictures. Boats, huge boats. The Queen Mary come up, sailboats would come up, and the background was always changing. It was organic. Now, this is why I don't get too many wedding jobs. Most people don't want this. You know, they want wedding photographers, whatever they are. And I don't mean to put them down because they work hard, they do a nice job presenting their stuff. But to me, it's cold, it's clean, it's color, and it goes in a plastic album. And they're craftsmen. They're good at what they do. Technically, they know what they're doing. But I don't consider them artists at all. But they are craftsmen. It's like when you go to a craft show somewhere in Pennsylvania and you got all these wonderful quilts, You know, this is not fine art, but it is a craft. And the people who do these things are good at it. And it's the same thing with wedding photographers. This one kid said the reason he used the zoom was so he wouldn't interfere with anybody. He wouldn't get in anybody's way. So he'd stand back and just grab these shots. I said, you know, I can teach a monkey how to do that. It's when you get 3 or 4 feet away from somebody and take a picture like this and become unnoticed. Right, you're noticed once the flash goes off, you're noticed. So you're quick. Three more giants. Now, you may not know them. The one on the left is Owen Davidson, which my son Anthony just finished playing tennis with down in Antigua, which thrills the hell out of me because Owen Davidson has won 13 Grand Slams, 8 of them with Billie Jean King in mixed doubles. The middle is Fred Stolle, who's won his share of Grand Slams, and John Newcomb, another Grand Slam winner. All 3 of them. This was taken at Wimbledon. This is when I first got my Canon 5D Mark III. I didn't know that much about it. I didn't know how far you could really test this thing. And all of a sudden, in the middle of this wedding, at my cousin's wedding, I give Albert credit, it's Albert and Whitney's wedding. The disc jockey decides to cut the light. He put on red filters on everything, and that was it. And I go, God, red filters, Jesus. That's 4 stops down. I mean, I was struggling as it was. And the thing I like about these new Canons, with the new technology, is I can put the flash aside. I haven't done a wedding or a bar mitzvah with a flash in years, because I don't want to. I mean, I can. I did it for years, but I don't want to use the flash. So I pushed this particular moment to 25,000 ASA. Now, those of us who grew up in film, 25,000 doesn't exist. 1,600 existed, and that's as far as you went. Now, 25,000, and I was fortunate enough to get this one moment. Now, most people at a wedding, you know, have a lot of nice flowers. But this woman's Italian, so she had garlic. Actually, she's not. She's not Italian. She's a farmer in Vermont and a very lovely girl and a great wedding. And I don't know the photograph's value. I just liked it, so I took the picture. This is all part of the wedding. This was a little before the wedding, and the child was finished eating. And you know, you take a picture like this, which is interesting to look at, because what it does to the viewer, I was there, so I know what was happening, but the viewer doesn't. And the viewer gets involved with this photograph because they're questioning it. So what is happening there? If that's what happens from the viewer, then I've succeeded. I've engaged the viewer at looking at my work and trying to figure out what's going on. This is the bride and her sister. Another girl at the wedding. I hadn't realized this until I saw the photograph, but I love the leggings that the bride is wearing. A little higher than the leggings, if you know what I mean. And for me, what I look for, and you have to be quick, are juxtapositions. You got the guy in the foreground doing the dance, and the woman in the background. I don't know what, I don't know what she's doing, what she's thinking. I don't care. I like the gesture. Again, it wouldn't be completed a Vermont wedding without a few sheep. I'm hoping to do a book on weddings, and I'm hoping to use this as the cover. I love this photograph. I don't get really whacked out about a lot of photographs, but this one, it's inexplicable. There's something about it that I liked very much. There was another young photographer there, and he had a strobe with a sensor on it and an umbrella, you know, and all that stuff that I shun. And this was shot without a flash, and it's twilight, as you can see, and the sun's behind them. So I can go probably up to 10,000 or 12,000 with this photograph, and it's still clean as a whistle. There's no, quote, noise, as today's generation is wont to say. This was part of the barn that the reception was held in, and looking out the window was this wonderful picture. Again, remember, this is all in a wedding album. And this is not your mother's wedding album. This is a whole different... And another thing that's influenced me greatly is my appreciation of art and diptychs. And I love it when I can get a diptych. This is the rehearsal dinner. The bride and groom in the foreground. Sister-in-law. So all I'm saying to you is next time you go to a wedding, put on a wide-angle lens and move in. Hoboken, New Jersey, the Feast of St. Anne. I see an old man walking down the street. And, you know, I can stand up and take a whole bunch of pictures, but this picture, I said, I've got to get low. I've got to get real low. And I don't even want to see his head. I just want to see his body hunched over, which spells to me his age. So I got real low, and that made the picture much more dramatic. You know, so there are a lot of times where I see people, when they're photographing children or a dog or cat, and they go, oh, look at that, how cute that is. And I look at it and I go, what happened to your knees? What do you mean? I go, well, bend the things. Get down and look at their level. Get on the child's level, get on the animal's level, and look them in the eyes. Same thing here. I got way down. You all know who that is. Here he is again. This is rather complete. On the extreme left is Carl Lewis. And if you don't remember the Olympics, he won the 100-yard dash, 200-yard dash, 400 relay, and the long jump. That's 4 gold medals. That's an unbelievable feat. Jim Gray is the announcer, the ABC announcer at that time. Muhammad Ali, Michael Phelps, the great swimmer, and I think one of the greatest boxers of all time, Sugar Ray Leonard, who happened to be the sweetest guy in the world. And, you know, they're just playing around. But again, I'm collecting these giants. It's a wedding not too long ago, about 3-4 weeks ago, up in the Bear Mountain area. And the one light over to the right was real hot. And they had a string of all the little tiny lights, the Christmas lights all around the thing. Believe it or not, you know, today's technology assumes that there was a lot of light in that room. There was not a lot of light in that room. This was shot at 20,000 ASA. You know, and you got to get your shutter speed up, otherwise you're going to get a blur. So I'm up to at least 250. And I'm shooting wide open. That's just for you technology people, it's a 24-1-4. And I was shooting at probably 2.8 at 250 at 20,000 ASA. That's the guy that was smiling before. This is John Mcenroe and my son Anthony. And I want you to remember that name, Anthony DiGiacomo, because he's making a feature film this December or January. Right now he's working on commercials. He and David Shapiro, his director, they're doing commercials just so they can pay the rent. But they're all set to do a feature film. So look for his credit somewhere. You're lucky when you get things like this. I love moments like this. You know, you're out shooting tennis and you're looking for forehands and backhands. And then when you get something silly like this, it really makes it. This was at the zombie parade in Asbury Park. And I found the people more interesting, the photographers more interesting than the zombies, because they do anything for a picture. You know, and two of them are using cell phones. So that's another thing, you know, I spoke to a principal yesterday, right after Mass, this one very nice principal at Old Tappan High School. And I said, photography is the new literacy. Pay attention. Ask a kid, when was the last time he wrote a letter or an essay about American history? They don't write anything anymore. Everything's on the computer. I said, but ask him the last time he took a picture. That day, with their cell phone. Kids are always shooting pictures. There was a report by, I think it was Yahoo, that said, this year, 2015, there will be 800 billion photographs taken with regular cameras and cell phones. So why they're not teaching it in high school or even elementary school, I don't know. And if any of you are teachers or you know teachers, say, wake up. You're being left behind. These kids are burying you with vision. And you don't understand it. So it's the new literacy. I mean, just look at television. You know, how many times you see on WCBS, on local news, you know, this was shot with a cell phone, somebody, okay. And they always offer a disclaimer, if anything happens in your neighborhood and you happen to see it and you take a picture of it or a video of it, please send it to us. Come on, teachers, wake up. This is what's happening. And they're not paying attention, and that's sad. This is at Curtain Bluff in Antigua in the West Indies. Wedding. I'm collecting more. The tall guy is I think French or Belgian photographer. I'm not, tennis player, I'm not sure. But the guy on the bottom is Roger Federer, who's arguably the greatest player of all time. This is Michaela Fiaschi's wedding. Michaela preferred color, and she hired, and rightfully so, this is what she wanted. She wanted a color photographer to document everything. I was there as a guest, shooting in black and white, and I think these pictures are more interesting. I've seen the color stuff. This is, not everybody does this, and I'm not asking you to do it. I just do it. This is at my table, and I'm photographing the people at my table. You can see my camera, one of my cameras in the foreground, and Paolo in the background. I think he'd just been shocked by something. You know, and when there are times where you have to shoot quickly, so you're not there to really study your composition or even move things around. Leave it there, because it shows where you are and what your position is in relationship to the photo. So I'm shooting right from my, you know, because I wanted that expression. And that, how long is that expression going to last? I have no idea. A second, maybe 10 seconds, maybe a minute. I don't know, but I'm going to take the shot real quickly. If I'm using a 24 millimeter lens, I will hyperfocal that. So I'm in focus from 2.5 feet to infinity. I got more light than that.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I'm down to, I'm at least at f11.
Oh.
And I'm about a 60th of a second.
Oh.
So if you take that 60 and go up to 250, that's 2 stops. So you drop that down from f11 to 8, 5, 6. So the reading is really 5, 6 at 250, and it's probably 1600, maybe 2000 ASA. I'll raise the ASA up. I want to be able to do that hyperfocal distance. I get a lot of arguments from photographers say, no, I want the picture a little cleaner.
But you can't get the...
Yeah, well, that's the point.
Yeah.
My point is get the photograph.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the grain.
Yeah.
You know, when people say, well, there's a lot of noise. Yeah, but most of it's coming from you, so shut up. So, you know, I'm not the first one to say this, but there are only 2 rules in photography. The first rule is there are no rules. The second rule is if you happen to find one and you want to break it, break it. Break the rule. And if you can't fight and you can't flee, flow. Somebody want to repeat what I just said? I have no idea what. Do I post-process my photograph? In other words, do I look at them and adjust them?
Editing, right.
It takes 45, sometimes 45 minutes for me to convert this from color. I always shoot in color because I never know when color is going to work. But 95% is black and white. So I'll convert it to black and white, and that's when I start dodging and burning, you know, and lightening up the flowers in the background. I mean, normally most photographers aren't going to do that, but I wanted to touch those little things with light just to give it some depth in the photograph and to make it a little more interesting. I work on the waiter, who's got a different complexion than the guy with his hands folded. You know, I want to take down the bottles in the foreground because the white is distracting. So 45 minutes on a photograph is not asking too much of me. And people say, well, geez, you know, why does this cost so much? I say, because I'm not giving you what comes out of the camera. I'm giving you what comes out of my eye and my mind. And I want to change things around a little bit. I want to add some things. So I think post-processing is important. Ansel Adams said the negative is the score. He's talking about music, and the print, the performance. And if you think about that, he's absolutely right. And this was in film. Same thing applies here. You know, the score is the original photograph, but the performance is going to be working that up. And he was equating that to music because he was a classical pianist, as far as I understand. Now, this is where you really get in trouble. When you stop on the Jersey Turnpike, you get out of your car, and you're looking back at Jersey City, because I was going home and I'm looking at that and I'm going, oh my God, I got to get that. And in those days I was using SLRs, and I shot this with a 500 millimeter mirror lens, the old Nikon mirror lenses, you know, and trying to hand hold it at a 60th of a second because I didn't have much light, you know, and you're trying to weigh, you're saying, okay, what the hell is that foreground lit for? And then I know what the background is, you know, I got to stop it down for the background to get those gold bricks. But I want some detail in the foreground, otherwise you're not going to. So that's it. This is in Antigua in the West Indies. I've been going there for 35 years. I stay at a wonderful resort called Curtain Bluff, who was exceedingly generous with me by allowing me to stay and go into this village. It's a poor, impoverished village with wonderful people. They may be impoverished, but their spirit isn't. They're great and they're lots of fun. And in the back, there's a guy with a hat on. His name is Peter. Great guy. And what they do is they put logs under the boat and they roll it up on the sand. The reason they have to do that is because they can't anchor it, because a windstorm may knock it loose. So they bring it up on the shore. And there's once they get it to a certain point, there's a log in the back that they bring to the front, and they keep moving the logs up until they finally get up where it is. But Peter, I'll never forget, one day I yelled at him. I said, Peter, you're wearing white. And I'm shooting Tri-X. You're wearing white. I told you, don't wear white. I said, you're black and you're wearing white. Do you know what that does for me in the dark room? Murder! I can't print this. Stop doing it. And he's looking at me like my ears just fell off. You know, like, what is he talking about? And it was just lots of fun because I used to yell at them all the time. So, but I'll say one thing. If you go to Africa or anywhere in the Caribbean and you're photographing black people, and you're doing it in film or digital, that's where you learn to be a great technician, because it ain't easy, you know, exposing for both, you know, both the white shirts and then the skin. So, I mean, you know, I can expose for his face and he looks great, and then his shirt just blooms, you know, because I haven't given it any light or any dodging or burning. Well, the old expression with film was expose for the shadows and the highlights will take care of themselves. I never knew what the hell that meant, you know, but I did it. Okay, these guys, this is a trivia question for, well, Jay could answer this. How many Grand Slam winners are in this photograph, Jay? Any idea? Sorry? No, in this photograph, how many Grand Slam winners? All of them. Wrong. And that's why it's a trivia question. This was taken at practice. And Chilik had not won the tournament at that point. So there are only 3 Grand Slam winners. But technically, and Jay's right, there's a 4th. That's Chilik. What had happened was I talked to Becker before. This was during practice. I said, Boris, I said, you got 3 Grand Slam winners here. I said, I'd love to get the 3 of you guys in the photograph. Yeah, okay, we'll do it after the practice. Okay, great. So practice is over, and I waved to Boris. I said, don't forget me. So they get together, the 3 of them, and then Chilik comes in behind them. I'm not going to embarrass the guy and say, no, come on, I only want the Grand Slam winners, and, you know, you're just a kid. You're just a 21-year-old kid that we don't need yet. I said, stay there, that's fine. So maybe it was serendipity or maybe I was good luck for him, but he won that tournament that year. So you got 4 Grand Slam winners. I do this quite often, but maybe not often enough. There was a storm by my house, and there were leaves blowing all over the place. And I passed by, and this is where you have to have spent time in the dark room, because when I look at a situation like this, I don't just see a tree stump, you know. I see tonal values, and that's what I notice more than anything, is the tonal values. And I go, this will make a great print if I just take my time and expose it properly. And I got tonal values. I don't know if it's a great photograph, but it's a lot of fun for me, and it's interesting. Here's a guy just about to strangle me with a rubber glove and a hot dog. And he's Egyptian and I'm Sicilian, so it would have made an interesting fight. But he just yelled at me in something in Egyptian, and I said, just serve the lady the hot dog and let me take pictures. And that's all it was. It was at the Easter parade. And if you're a New Yorker, or even if you live in Jersey or Long Island, and you haven't gone to the Easter parade, you have no idea what you're missing in terms of photographs. They're there, and they want to be photographed, and they're all narcissists, so you can't miss at the Easter parade, or the Mermaids parade, or the Halloween parade, or the St. Anne's parade in Hoboken, any of those parades. Everybody wants to be photographed. This is something that happens, I think, only in New Jersey. I'll stand corrected if somebody from Long Island says, "Hey, we do it too," or Staten Island or any place else. But in New Jersey, when a volunteer fire department, and we have all these little towns in New Jersey, and they all have volunteer fire departments. And what happens is when one of them gets a new apparatus, you know, a new super pumper or hook and ladder or whatever, it has to be baptized. And there's a whole ritual about this. So other volunteer fire departments from other communities come with their super pumpers and their hoses, and they have this fight between the two of the fire departments. So you got one department, you know, with its new baby, fighting off these other guys that came to baptize it. So, and then you'll have an idiot like me that says, I'm not going to stand on the sidewalk and shoot this with a long lens. I'm going to follow those guys and get in close. And that, to me, makes the photograph, is you got to get in close. Okay, so you're going to get wet. Okay? If you don't want to get wet, find another profession or another hobby. Take up clay molding and stuff. All you do is get your hands dirty. But as a photographer, you're going to get dirty and you're going to get wet. And so is your camera. So I found that the new Canon 5D Mark III is really tight, because that camera got wet. But it was tighter than hell. Had I had it with the 20D, that would have been trouble, because that's not as sealed as tight. But that 5D Mark III is just brilliant. See what happens when you get in close? And remember I said I shoot in color and then transform it to black and white. I had to leave this in color, because this made sense in color. Same thing here. This worked in color. I don't find the color distracting. You know, I don't shoot color for color's sake like Jay Maisel does. I mean, Jay's brilliant with that. But I don't have that kind of vision. And you can see the power of those hoses. So again, you're taking your chances by getting close, because you get hit with one of those hoses, you're going back and on your butt. And when your camera gets wet, sometimes Providence is on your side, because it gives you a delightful image like that. You know, 9 out of 10 times you look at that. Now, rugby players aren't going to hurt you. You know, even when you're getting in real close and they're bleeding, you know, and they're hurt and they got a concussion. Now, I showed you before that series of the kids swimming in the river. A lot of people don't realize this, but swimming in the river is a formal affair. So you have to have black knee socks. If you don't have black knee socks, you're not allowed, you know, and preferably if you speak Spanish and you got a hole in your t-shirt, you got the whole thing. That's the outfit you have to wear. That, if you haven't figured this out by now and you don't know who he is, that's Jay Maisel, one of the all-time greats. This was at his wedding 30 some odd years ago. Now, in the middle is John McEnroe. And this is exactly what I wanted from this picture. It's something a bit more introspective. Another place you might want to go is Liberty State Park in Jersey City. There are always wonderful photographs there. Weddings. You know, and again, your wedding photographer is not going to get this because he's going to stop and straighten out the veil and make sure it's proper. There are those three guys again. Polly will understand this. One of the successes of this photograph is the fact that John McEnroe is smiling and he has his hand on Jimmy's shoulders. Because these are not the best of friends. I'm not going to say they're enemies, by no means. But they've had their disagreements in the past. And do you know who the third guy is in there? Who said that? Wait, I can't see you. Oh, okay. You get, Greg, you get to eat some candy after this. Well, three of the all-time greats. We don't know about the third one yet. We're still waiting for Carmelo to prove his absolute worth. But three of those guys are giants. You know, and for me, it's a valuable photograph because I'm the only one that has it. There was nobody there. I was hired by a friend of mine who was doing a film on the Olympians, and I was the only still photographer there. So this is a rare angle for me. I'm usually shooting the other way to get the World Trade Center in, but this one has the Empire State Building in it, the little boy and the gentleman sleeping. And I usually don't do this, but this is something that I pulled from my subconscious, I'm sure. This is Cartier-Bresson. This is the exact kind of photograph that he would take. It's not my usual photograph where I get in real close and right next to the subject, whereas Cartier-Bresson always stood back and observed things and collected. Again, another thing, you know, when I photograph a tennis tournament, and there was one guy that used to allow me to do this, and that was Gene Scott. Allowed me to take any pictures I wanted. It didn't always have to be forehands and backhands. Gene was the publisher of Tennis Week, and he was smart enough to use diverse photographs in there, not just forehands and backhands. So you get a moment like this, you know, where there's this wonderful conversation going on between these two giants. This is Margaret McLaughlin saying goodbye to Peter Wallace, who's a Scottish folk singer. And she's saying goodbye to him, just crushing him. This was my date at the zombie parade. And the three of us had a great time. And the three of us, there's a joke in there. Never mind. Doesn't matter. Anyway. Michael Phelps, the swimmer. I've never seen anything so boring in all my life. He swam, I promise you, for 45 minutes. back and forth, without stopping. He stopped once, I'm sorry. He had a little water and took a drink of water and they went back swimming. And I go, God almighty, how does he do that? Why does he do that? I mean, even in death there's beauty if you look for it. Now, this is before digital photography, and so I had to use a flash. And one of the things about the light in New York is that with all these tall buildings, the light bounces around all over the place. And I remember I wrote to Mayor Koch, because there was so much building going on, the light was disappearing in the city. And I wrote to the mayor and I said, damn it, Mayor, the city is down 2 stops. You know, give me a break. For me, not everybody, for me, the more that's going on, the more interesting I find it. And I want to get in the middle of everything. And I want clutter and all of that nonsense. That picture's so nice, I did it twice. It's just a friendly game of rugby. Remember when I said you got to get close, you know, to make the picture a little more dramatic? There's a wonderful scene in one of the Marx Brothers movies where Groucho's dancing with this woman and she goes, hold me closer, and he pulls her in. He goes closer and he pulls her in. She goes closer, he goes, if I was any closer to you, I'd be in back of you. It's the same thing here. There are times where I find myself, wait a second, don't get so close, man. You got to back up just a little bit. Another thing, we all do this. We're all guilty of this. Is walking down a New York street and we look in a window, but we don't look closely enough at what's going on in the window. And this is a Saks Fifth Avenue window where the mannequin is lit up and there are all these people waiting for a bus alongside of it. So the story is more complete that way. That's, again, the tattoo thing. And she's got tattoos on her legs. It's fascinating. And I'm not making any judgments. That's the way these people are. I'm not going to say, oh, why the hell do you do something like that? But they make it great for me. Again, like I said, I like the confusion. Okay, and what makes this picture is the shape of that tuba. So, I mean, there are times we'll walk right past that and not pay any attention. But if you stop and you stare and you consider the background and everything and the lighting. There are twin images here. You've got the twin images of the guy's arms and the twin towers. But the metaphor for me is the tension in the arms and the anticipation of what's about to come. Polly? See, while most photographers at the U.S. Open are photographing tennis, I'm looking for guys that have Robert De Niro and Al Pacino on their calves. And in the back half, they got Jack Nicholson in The Shining and Hannibal Lecter on his back half. So, you know, but he's a wonderful guy. He's a workman. I've seen it. He comes for Arthur Ashe Day every year. I see him every year. He's a real super guy. And his name is Matty the Horse, and he lives in Brooklyn. This was at a wedding not long ago, and that was the groom. I love the kid. The kid is just bored to tears, and the guy's doing everything he can to shake him up. Another friendly day of rugby. And a lot of people say, God, God, you got to be stupid to play that game. Yeah, these are real stupid. One team is Vassar, the other team is Princeton. And boy, you got to really be dumb to get into those schools. I have no idea how that happened, but I just love the scale of that. Oh yeah, this is it. In case your children are interested in playing rugby, Sam, I think you'd be perfect for this game. Not playing with the girls, you play with the boys, but this is what happens in rugby. You get a poke in the eye. Or you get buried at the bottom of a pile there. The thing I like about rugby, and people ask me, what's your favorite sport to shoot? And I'm not being braggadocious. I worked with Sports Illustrated, so I've shot everything, even bocce on an assignment for them once. And my favorite sport is rugby because it's rough, it's tough, they play in any kind of weather, and I do not like Randall's Island because they have artificial turf. I want it on real turf where there's mud and dirt and everybody's filthy. But the thing about rugby is you can see faces. In football, I can't see anybody's face in football. The other thing is I get kids all the time saying, gee, I really want to be a sports photographer. Can you get me into Giant Stadium? I said, you don't have to go to Giant Stadium. You want to prove yourself, go to Randall's Island. Go to West Point. Go to any place that has open accessibility and get on a sideline. Football, you can take your life in your hands because it can be rough. Rugby's no picnic either, but I want to get close in rugby. So I'll stand on the sidelines, waiting for action to come close to me. But that's where you prove yourself, is you make yourself a portfolio by starting it with the little stuff. And then you can go to Sports Illustrated and say, this is what I do. Now, this is what I mean by playing on turf. Look at those guys. And it's raining, it's still raining. I love the guy in the bottom because he's got his arm around the other guy's leg to prevent him from crushing his head with his knee. There's another girl I don't think I'd run into. That's a big kid. Wow. This is what it's all about, rugby. And these girls, I got to give them credit. They didn't back down at all, and they were getting filthier and filthier. What makes this picture so successful is this is where the girls are right here. And this is where I am, sticking that camera out as close as I can to the action. I want to put the viewer right there.
But not get tackled.
Oh, they can tackle me, provided it's the girls. The guys used to hurt. Man, some of those girls are big kids. Now, this is the younger kids. This is, Sam, this is perfect for you. This is under 19. Again, I'm on the sidelines. I'm really close to this. I don't want to shoot with a long lens. I want to shoot with a wide angle so I have more depth to it, and I can present you, the viewer. Now, I got to tell you, there's a backstory to this. I asked these kids to go up on the piling, which is on the extreme edge of the picture. And the piling is about anywhere from 20 to 25 feet out of the water, depending on the tide. And I said to the kids, you know, I'd love it if you guys went up on those twin pilings and then dive off, and I'll get the Trade Center in the background. They didn't know that. I said, I just want you diving. He said, yeah, okay, and I really had to cajole them. And they said, we'll only do it once. And I said, well, what's the big deal about doing it another time? They said, because we don't know what's in that river. Yeah, okay. You mean like an abandoned car or a dead horse, you know, or anything like that? And they were right. So when they did swim in the river, they swam pretty much on the surface, you know, so nothing ever bothered them. But if you're going to dive from that height and you're going down, you're going to go down 15, maybe 20 feet. And if you get into a car or something like that and you can't get out, so I can understand their fears. But it made for a very lucky and wonderful photograph. This was a very lucky shot because I was in this pool hall and it's / bar, and as I was walking out, somebody called my name and I turned around, and that's exactly how I saw them. And I had my camera on my side, and I looked at them, I said, nobody moves. And I just took up my camera, I took 3 very quick shots, and to their everlasting credit, they didn't move. I didn't know if the camera was set properly or anything. You know, I just shot, and very fortunate.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.